As a team leader, I'm always screaming and hollering and trying to be very emotional because that's the type of guy I am. But these guys knew what they had to do today. They had to come in here and play reckless and play physical, and that's what they did.
The 1981 college football season will be remembered as the year of the #1 jinx. This week it was Pitt's turn to try that jinx, and early in the game it looked like the jinx was going to win another one. And it looked like it was going to be turnovers and penalties that would make Pitt a former #1 team. Those turnovers and penalties allowed Rutgers to control the ball for most of the first quarter and put the defense in poor field position several times. But, as usual, the defense came up with a big play when it had to. It took the offense some time to get rolling, but once it got started, it couldn't be stopped. And the offense turned 2 poor field positions into 2 second-quarter touchdowns, and from then on, it would be Pitt controlling the ball, and they did it with DiBartola and Thomas. Dan Marino shook off 2 early interceptions and came back to have a typical Dan Marino day, and it all added up to a big day for the offense. And it was a win over 2 opponents, Rutgers and the Jinx, and it was a message for the rest of the country. Pitt is back. We'll have all the action and the story of Panther Pride, which is brought to you by Westinghouse and the 140,000 Westinghouse employees worldwide. By Miller High Life, if you got the time, we've got the beer. And by Gulf Oil, who suggests you try Gulf Super Unleaded, the gas with guts. It helps eliminate knocks and pings. Even though Pitt had 2 close calls in a row against less than top quality opponents, they still had Jackie Sherrill's and just about everybody else's vote for #1 in the country. The pattern of the last 2 weeks was beginning to develop early Saturday. The offense had trouble moving the ball and gave it up, and Rutgers was moving. And that put the pressure on the defense. And as usual, the defense was able to handle it. Al Wenglakowski got the start at left defensive end, and he was making the best of it. And the defense had passed its first test. Now the offense starts to show signs that it's about to take control. And when Pitt controls the ball, they do it with Thomas and DiBartola. And they do it with big holes in the offensive line, and those holes were opened even though Big Jimbo Covert was missing from the left side. A sophomore named Greg Christie filled in there, and the offensive line didn't skip a beat. But a missed snap on this series meant no points this trip, and still a tie ball game. And Rutgers obviously saw the Boston College films. They do a good imitation of BC here. And the Pitt defense has trouble with the rollout. And as we've seen for the past 2 weeks, just when the defense starts to bend, somebody steps in to make sure it doesn't break. This time it was Michael Woods, who continues his season-long imitation of Hugh Green. This wouldn't be the last time the defense was called on to stop a Rutgers drive. After 3 plays and a punt, Rutgers got the ball back. And another problem the past 2 weeks has been arm tackling, and arm tackling here gets Rutgers to the Pitt 8. Some razzle-dazzle doesn't work thanks to a stumble and a good defensive play by Tom Flynn. And this field goal just barely puts Pitt behind for the 3rd week in a row, and you had to wonder when Pitt would get it all together. Things didn't get any better in the 2nd quarter. It started with a turnover. And Rutgers is in good field position again. And that means it's time for another big play by the defense. A hit by Wenglakowski and a recovery by Sinceri.
Trapped and we were running outside, and they just caught the seam, and they ran inside, and we just hit him. We just lucked out. He just fumbled the ball, and Sal recovered it and really woke us up.
The offense wasn't quite ready to wake up yet, but the defense was still playing wide awake. And here's another reason for the continued success of the Pitt defense, Bill Moss. The offense gets the ball back, and it's time to start moving on the BT Express. But the ball is still taking Rutgers bounces, and it's another turnover. And Jackie Sherrill had to be wondering when the offense would put it together. And Rutgers had to be wondering who taught these guys how to play defense. The answer to that question is simple.
Coach Fazio is assistant head coach, defensive coordinator, will coach specifically the linebackers, but he's in charge of the defense. He's also in charge of our punting game as far as our punt team. And he also, during the season, recruiting in Western Pennsylvania. During the game day, he's in charge of the defensive team. Certainly, he has done an outstanding job, and his reputation throughout the country is one of the best defensive coaches in the country.
Serafino Foge Fazio is the only Pitt graduate on the coaching staff. In a recent Inside Sports article, Foge was rated one of the top 5 defensive coordinators in the country. He's been at Pitt twice as an assistant, 1969 to 1972, and he joined Jackie Sherrill in 1977. Foge was the starting center as a player in 1959. For one season, he played linebacker for the Boston Patriots of the old AFL. Since his arrival at Pitt in 1977, his defense has been ranked 2nd in total defense in the country. In 1980 and so far this season, the defense is ranked number 1 in the country against the run and in total defense. In last week's game against Boston College, Foge left his normal press box location and came down to the sidelines to better assess the situation. Probably his best asset is his ability to get along with people, and in particular, the players. And Foge's players just kept stuffing Rutgers on the pass and on the run. Pitt still on the wrong end of the field position and in need of a long drive. Wayne DiBartola improves that field position in a hurry right here. Again, great blocking on the offensive line off the right side. Brian Thomas takes a pass and eats up a good chunk himself, and the field position is getting better on every play. Dan Marino to Julius Dawkins on the post, and the ball is in Rutgers territory. Marino is mixing it up well, and it's Barry Compton's turn here. This was the drive that got the Pitt offense rolling. Wayne DiBartola rolls to the 11. This would be a 96-yard drive, and Thomas gets 6 more of it. And here's the beginning of the end for Rutgers. A scramble, a pass to DiBartola, and a touchdown.
I was standing there waiting to block my guy, and no one came in, and I realized he hadn't thrown the ball yet, so I turned around and saw that Dan was scrambling, and then I tried to break it to the corner, and he threw it to me. I just caught it.
The Pitt defense held again, and this drive starts on the 18. Wayne DiBartola adds 16 to that, and it's first down. Dan Marino goes to Barry Compton. And Pitt goes into Rutgers territory again. And deeper into Rutgers territory, this time to Dwight Collins. And this would be Collins' last play of the game. And this would be the last play of the drive. Marino to John Brown. Touchdown, Pitt.
Obviously, they had so much respect for our wide receiver that the strong safety and the corner both jumped on the 7 route, which left me kind of open down the middle.
And it took some time, but the Pitt offense was back, and the route was on. The Pitt offense was ready to start rolling in the second half just as it did in the first half, and it started rolling with Wayne the Train. John Brown keeps coming up with a big catch, and each week he becomes a bigger part of the Pitt offense. Pitt is working on its third long drive in a row, and Dan Marino left most of the driving to Brian Thomas. 73 yards will be eaten up in this drive, and Thomas ate up 51 of them. You don't go on long drives without an offensive line clearing the way. This line has been doing it all year, and two of the big movers are Ron Sams and Rob Fada.
Academics mix with athletics pretty well because the mind has to be physically fit as well as the body. In academics and athletics, I think they put an easy mixture on your mind and your body. If you're not doing well in athletics, you can put your mind into your academics until your athletics come back up, so you don't dwell on your failures in the athletic part.
Academics and athletics for me are both very important, but personally I try to separate the two. I think that it is very important for not only myself and Rob, but for all of my teammates to excel in both. When I'm on the athletic field, I think of nothing but football, and I devote myself to the sport. And when I'm in the classroom, I devote myself to my studies.
The major is pre-med, which really is a major. You just have to satisfy all the requirements of a medical school to get in, which is you have to take all your biology, your chemistry, your physics, your languages. Currently, I'm taking all these classes. And my plans for after that is going to try to get into Pittsburgh's medical school. The Rhodes Scholarship is a very prestigious scholarship, which is set up by the Rhodes Foundation for postgraduate work of the excellent scholar athletes in the nation. I myself have been considered for it, which I'm really pleased with.
My major as of right now is psychology, and although I don't plan to become a psychiatrist someday, this field of work will help me in the business field someday. Discipline is a very important part of my life. From a very early age, my dad has taught me the importance of self-discipline. And I believe that the discipline I've received in athletics has helped me in the classroom. It's very easy to go out with your friends and not do your schoolwork. But I myself have realized the importance of time spent in the room studying and budgeting my time properly.
Athletics demand a lot of your time, and I enjoy putting a lot of time into them. Academics is really the toughest to do because it demands you be really alert. I myself go to the library for a while, which you get ribbed a lot for it, but it's rewarding.
Nothing is more rewarding to an offensive lineman than the knowledge that he played a big part in a touchdown. And if you watch number 77, you'll see that Sams played a big part in this one, right there. And Pitt is up by 18. This 15-yard gain on a pass to Thomas on the next possession wasn't enough for a first down, and Pitt had to punt. But even the punt is an offensive weapon for Pitt now, and the guy who snapped the ball ends up with the ball. Two plays later, and Marino and Dawkins get it to the Rutgers 19. The big weapon today is Brian Thomas. And in two plays, he has Pitt a foot from the goal line. And it's time to sneak one in. The offensive line moves him out so Marino can go up and in.
As far as goal line offense goes, the offensive linemen really make it work. We have to penetrate into the end zone. We can't let the defensive men penetrate.
Pitt was into the end zone for the fourth time, and this one is a blowout. In the fourth quarter, it's just a matter of impressing the voters and the Bull Scouts. They should be impressed with the combination of Dan Marino and John Brown. Nothing fancy here. Just 9 more for DeBartola. Marino to Thomas again, and Pitt is 8 yards closer to another score. And that means only 2 more yards to go, and that's no problem for Wayne the Train.
I don't mind scoring with a pass either, but on the ground made me feel real happy about that.
And who wouldn't be happy with a 35-3 lead in the 4th quarter? We haven't seen much of the defense for a while. So how about a sack by Al Wenglikowski? That one was for a loss of 6. This one is minus 13. The offense gets the ball back, and DeBartola adds 10 yards to what would be a total offensive output for Pitt of 554. DeBartola and Thomas accounted for 269 of those yards. When Collins is out, Compton is in. And on this one, Compton is in the end zone. And with this one, Pitt is into the 40s. Jackie Sherrill gets a chance to play some of the young guys, like Bill Beach, a sophomore fullback. And another sophomore, Mark Bailey. This one is good for 24 yards. Gary Tamaro is a sophomore, too. He gets his 8 yards worth. And there's some depth on this young Pitt defense, too. Troy Benson is a freshman. Michael Brooks is a junior college transfer. He comes up with a fumble recovery. Back to the offense, and a freshman running back named Marlon McIntyre. And Marlon gets his first college touchdown. Jackie Sherrill had to wait 3 weeks for an easy one, and he got it this week because he found his offense, and he got another typically outstanding performance from his defense. A total effort, and the #1 team beats Rutgers and the #1 Jinx and heads down the stretch toward a possible 10th national championship. Jackie Sherrill should be happy to see that his players have learned their lesson.
Things that happened the last 2 weeks, I think they were playing not to win instead of, not to lose instead of to win. And we said, we're not going to do that. We're going to come out, we're going to cut it loose. And, even in the start of the game against the win, we came out and started throwing the ball. We started moving the ball or playing offense like we were capable of playing, or like that is our offense. And the defense, kind of did some things at first, and all of a sudden they came back and made some things happen, caused some fumbles. And then they ended up at the second half, started putting a lot of pressure on their quarterback, and we ended up with some good things.
And now the players know what they can do when they put it all together.
Oh, we got things pretty well down this week. We practiced real hard all week in practice, and we just came out ready this week.
Everybody did their job, they did the right thing, and that's how our defense works best.
After the first quarter, everything seemed to work out all right. Come together, play as a unit.
And that good feeling of knowing you're #1 will be around for at least 1 more week.
I'm kind of happy with that. I like being challenged, and I'm sure everybody on this team enjoys being challenged.
Next week, it's Army. On paper, it looks like a mismatch. Army is 3-6, and their 3 wins have come against 3 Ivy League teams. So it's going to take a miracle for Army to win this one. Army does have some talented individual players. Running back Gerald Walker is the team's leading rusher. And he's their leading receiver. The quarterback situation is a unique one. No one knows week to week until game day who is starting. The alternatives, Gerald Bennett, he's the scrambler. Brian Allen is the pure pocket passer. Defensively, tackle Kevin Dodson excels at penetration into the opposition's backfield. He has 11 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. The safeties are the strength of the secondary. Strong safety Joe Hampton leads Army with 3 interceptions. The free safety, Mike Williams, has picked off 2. Army is out of their class, but once again, Pitt will have to keep up their momentum. That's next week, Pitt and Army, and we'll have all the stories and the action on Panther Pride. Panther Pride has been brought to you by Westinghouse and the 140,000 Westinghouse employees worldwide. By Light Beer, everything you always wanted in a beer and less. And by Gulf Oil, who suggests you try Gulf Super Unleaded, the gas with guts. It helps eliminate NOx and pings. The executive producer of Panther Pride is Richard L. Clouser. This show was produced and directed by Doug Kennedy. Creative consultant, Guido D'Elia. Associate producer, Bill Dickhout. Production and technical facilities by TPC Communications, Pittsburgh. This has been a TPC production.